In this module, we talk about coverage. You're at the TheIndieLot, and this is the Filmmakers Boot Camp. All right, camera is rolling. You ready? Action. We're talking about this idea of coverage. And in the last clip that you just saw, this is a short film that I was working on with my niece last summer. That clip you just saw, in actuality, is really the entire film. It was just a small, quick, short story where I had been wanting to work on some visual effects, and you'll start to see some of that emerge later on in this course. But also, too, I wanted to get my niece involved in being in front of the camera because we were planning a much larger shoot with her as one of my main actresses just a few months after that shoot. You'll notice in the clips that I'm showing that you'll see my niece start to smile, and she was just very excited to be on camera, and we had talked about this moment for a while. So the point being, though, is that oftentimes when you get into a shoot with your talent, they're going to be uncomfortable in front of the camera. They may not know what to do. They may be awkward. They may be smiling. And here's the way you remedy that and how you fix it. You do multiple takes. Okay, so that one scene there, my niece and I, we shot it over and over and over again, probably about 4 times, maybe 5, and I was able to get a performance out of her that I could use. But I find no matter what project I've worked on and however many actors I worked with, and usually the actors I work with are people who aren't really actors, but they're interested in trying it out. So even more important then, because they don't have specific skills or techniques that they've developed to help their acting. And so I find that the repetition, doing it over and over again, is what helps them adjust and get comfortable and kind of settle into the role that they're portraying. So, anyways, I got her set up in the shot and gave her the instructions, the gist of the story, and what I wanted her to do. And then what I proceeded to do then was to shoot that shot from start to finish. Okay, and so and you just saw that there. So she's playing her game. She looks up at something that she notices on the table. She's back to her game. She's playing, and then she looks up again. She reaches, she pulls and squeezes at the same time, etc. And that will kind of all make more sense a little bit later as everything kind of fleshes out in the story there. But that's it. And, as a film, it's not very exciting, is it? And it's because it's just shot from one angle, one perspective. And in this module, we're discussing this idea of coverage, and coverage is about covering that scene or covering a shot with multiple angles and what we call shot types. And we'll talk more about shot types in a moment. In this module, as I said, we're talking about this concept called coverage. And coverage, I see it in two aspects. We need coverage for technical reasons, and we need coverage for artistic reasons. So let me start first with talking about the technical aspects of why we need coverage. And this goes to show too why shooting films, actually doing it, is a great teacher more than just sitting and watching somebody talk about shooting films, because the only way I could learn this was by doing. And here's what happened on several shoots. I got my camera set up, lights, mics, whatever, right? I shot the scene. We did multiple angles, right? We spent a few hours, time to go home, wrap up, clean up. Okay. Now I'm getting to the edit floor and I'm starting to try to stitch this stuff together and put it together. And what I started to find out was I just simply didn't have enough frames to make my edits work in some occasions. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if I would have just held the shot for 2 more seconds, I would have what I need to get me from here to here. Because when we're editing, and we'll talk more about this later, when we get to the editing portion of this boot camp, is we want to edit on action. But sometimes you have inconsistent actions if you don't get enough frames, right? So somebody's reaching, and I stop the angle right here when their hand is here, but if I would have just held it while their hand extended to here, the next shot that I'm trying to stitch together, their hand is about in this position. And I can't stitch two shots together when in one shot their hand is here, and in the next shot their hand is here. Now maybe you could do it, but it might be really noticeable that something is not quite right there. We've missed some action in between. And so the technical aspect for coverage is shoot things from start to finish, get everything, all the motions from start to finish, get more than what you think you're going to need, and that way when you get to editing, you have enough material there. You have enough frames where you can integrate cuts and angles and action, and it looks more natural that way. Rolling, action in 3, 2, 1, go. So coverage from an artistic perspective has all to do with the feeling and the emotion of the film. It has to do with the portraying of the world in which your characters exist. All right, so when we talked about coverage with our first angle, we talked about the technical reasons for the coverage, and that was just so that we have enough frames in the edit, and we don't have any gaps that makes it difficult to stitch different shots together, especially when we're trying to cut on action. Shot types sets the tone for your artistic coverage, and that shot types, what I mean by that are shots like establishing shots, close-ups, point of view shots. An establishing shot would be a shot where you're pulled back away from everything and you're showing more of the world. So for example, if it was a sci-fi film, you might show spaceships or some kind of space station, right? Um, Seinfeld is one of the shows that I think of right away when I think of this idea of establishing shots. They usually use a picture or a shot of the diner before they go into the diner, right? Or they'll use a picture from outside of Jerry's building from the street. A lot of shows do this. And they'll use a picture of the house, right, before they actually go into the house and show the family interacting inside. And so that's kind of an establishing shot. And your different shot types, your close-ups and those kinds of things are going to be there to convey the feeling and the emotion, to draw you into what the character's thinking or feeling. All right. So pull back away from your subject when you're exposing the world and the environment in which they're in. Push in on your subject when you're trying to convey emotion and feeling that your character might be thinking. Camera is rolling. Action in 3, 2, 1. All right, so now we have coverage. So let's continue talking about these shot types. We need to still get a few more, okay? And in our case now, we just need really just to talk about one more. Our character is playing the game, okay? And so this would be a great opportunity to do an over-the-shoulder shot, okay? You're familiar with them. You can see here we're over her shoulder, and we're our viewer has seen that our character's playing the game, but now we actually show them the game. And we're not shooting for coverage here, so we don't need to get from start to finish. But I do want to suggest, and again, this is another one of those examples of learning by doing, and that is to get more than you think you're going to need. Again, because that way, when you get to the edit, you've got more frames to work with. You may change. If you need to lengthen something, you have that ability, and if you need to shorten something, you have that ability simply because you've captured enough frames and can pull it all together. So get more than what you think, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later when we get into editing. But there's a term I'll introduce you to now if you haven't heard it, and it's called pacing. Okay, and when we're talking about pacing, think about a song that you hear on the radio or on Spotify or whatever music service you might use, CDs, whatever. Okay, pacing or tempo in a song is the beat. Okay, the cadence, the beat. Okay, all right. So you may not know a lot about music. Okay, but you know in a song that if that beat gets off, you can feel it. You may not be able to exactly put your finger on it and know what happened, but you know when the beat gets off in a song because it you can feel it. It feels uncomfortable. Okay, what a beat is to a song, pacing is to a film. Okay, and so when you're editing, you want to be able to cut and edit pieces together, and you want it to be that when you're playing through your cuts that the beat of the film is on, right? It doesn't feel awkward. In other words, there's not awkward moments of long drawn out shots for no reason, before cutting to the next angle, right? And it's called pacing, and we'll talk more about that later. But pacing is going to be definitely served and helped by you making sure to shoot from start to finish in your scene, and then in your other shots getting more than what you think you're going to need, because if you have enough frames you'll be able to pace your film in however manner seems appropriate to you. Okay, so just make sure to get more than what you need, because that's going to help you in the edit, it's going to help you in your pacing. So in summary, as we consider the coverage, um, three angles, I want to suggest that you always shoot for three angles, three shot types. So don't do angles that are very similar in distance and look and feel, but choose angles that are very different from each other, and shot types where maybe your medium shot or a really, good close up, etc. But vary your shot types, vary your angles, and I say get three of those. Roll your camera from start to finish, from start to finish. That way, you cover coverage from both a technical aspect. You're making sure you got enough frames so that it makes it easier for you in the edit. And then from the artistic perspective, you're artistically you're revealing the world in which your character exists, and you're conveying the emotions of the story of what your character is experiencing and thinking or feeling as they go through whatever it is they're going through.